welcome back to Ghosted, Gagged, and Gay. For first timers, this podcast is about gay and queer love, dating, relationships, and everything that could affect that, especially mental health. I'm your host, Lonay, a gay relationship coach and rapid transformational therapy practitioner. I offer programs that combine therapy, coaching, and mindfulness to help people from our beloved community reestablish their relationship with themselves and setting themselves up for success when it comes to relationships, whether romantic or platonic, especially people who are stuck in repeating patterns of following emotional unavailability and so on. I am always offering clarity calls, so please book a call with me if you feel like you need to have a conversation and get some things clearer. Today, I would like to talk about the don'ts. So, the don'ts in a relationship to make it work. A lot of people approach me, or even from my clients, and tell me things like, "Oh, we have like with my partner or in my dating life, I'm very open and honest and clear and direct because I like to keep things very clear and honest, and I am very passionate about this kind of communication. And I am like one of the biggest advocates for like open communication and honest communication. But sometimes we normalize being like we normalize like insults and criticism as being open and honest. So there's a fine line between the two sometimes. So today I want to talk about certain don'ts. And how to really know like so that maybe you can have an idea of like, am I doing this? Am I, or like sometimes we're doing stuff just on autopilot without really realizing that we're actually doing one of the don'ts, and we are slowly damaging our relationship with our partner or even like our dating life, um even if you're single and just going out on dates. So one of the first don'ts is insult. So insults, whether sarcastic, playful, or said in anger, leave emotional bruises. Of course, if they were said in anger, then they would leave more bruises than like being sarcastic. So when you like say something and then you say like, "Oh, I was just joking," or "That's how we talk to each other," or something like that, this like kind of communication usually is like even if the other person is, or like if your partner or the person you're dating, even if they do perceive it as a joke, but you're like usually your nervous system doesn't really register jokes. It registers threat or safety. So either or. And insults, like they're negatives, right? So your nervous system register them as a threat, not as safety. So of course, depending on the situation and the people involved and everything, it can be really just a joke and it can really be like not harming at all. Just don't overdo it, even if they're like jokes. Don't make it as a baseline of communication or baseline of having fun together, like that you keep insulting each other. Um, like on the long term, these things really matter and they really affect how you perceive your partner and how you feel about them. So in my own past, I used like really subtle insults as a way to like be funny and be relatable. And but subconsciously I realized I was creating this distance when I felt overwhelmed or insecure. And it was part of like self-sabotaging, right? Because I didn't really feel that I deserve this kind of relationship or this kind of person. And then I was like doing this, and I was completely unaware of it. So, of course, sometimes it's fun to do it. I'm like, I still do it until today. But of course, like everything is about balance, right? And knowing the right moments and not overdoing it. Um, Second don't is blame. So blame sometimes like it can feel like, oh, I'm just being a good accountability partner um to my partner or to this person. But when accountability feels a bit threatening, in then it's bordering blame. Or it can be really like just upfront blame, like, oh, you did this, it's your fault, something like that. Um, of course, this is like the other extreme, but blame can also be very subtle and you don't notice like, oh, I was actually blaming the other person. So instead of and like for example, if you say if you come to somebody like you're dating and you say like, oh, you're emotionally unavailable, you need to work on it, you know? Instead of saying that, it should be something like, I felt disconnected and didn't know how to ask for closeness. You know, something like that. So try to always, like when you talk about emotions, I know like you have valid emotions and you need to communicate that and you need to be honest about your communication, about your feelings. So instead of really going out, like going with the blame, just go talk about it from your perspective. Like, I felt this way. I don't know what's going on. Like, don't jump to conclusions. Actually, I should have added that. I didn't add that. Um, so jumping to conclusions. Don't jump to conclusions like, oh, I'm feeling this way. It must mean that this other person is doing something horrible. No, it can be just really a bit of misunderstanding or just feeling disconnected a little bit, which happens to everyone. So blame doesn't really get any rewards. Like it just keeps both people stuck. So they keep stuck like one is always feeling attacked and the other feels righteous and feels like, oh, I'm the right one here. No one feels understood because even the righteous one feels like they feels disconnected, feels like, oh wow, this person needs a lot of work before we can get to like a nice place. Um, I mean, of course, this is also the other extreme end of the spectrum of blame. Um, the third dawn I would like to talk about is compete. A lot of partners and so many people who came to me, they keep like a scoreboard, you know, like, oh, I did this the other day and I did this, I get 10 points. So far you have 5 points. Then you owe me. Something like that. This is very direct, but somehow a lot of partners, they keep a scoreboard in their minds. Oh, like imagine the other day I did this for him, but he didn't do anything back to me. You know, like kind of scoreboard. So if you're doing something just to put it on the scoreboard, don't do it. Don't do it. So if you're doing it just really out of love or, you know, like support, then then do it. Better. So like not doing something is better than doing it just to put it on the scoreboard. This is like like very it can become very toxic very fast. Of course, occasionally, I mean nobody's perfect. Occasionally it can happen. I'm not here to talk about how to make your relationship perfect because there's no perfect relationship. And of course, sometimes we all keep scoreboards. But again, don't overdo it. And when you notice that you're doing it, then erase the scoreboard. Reset the score. Remember, you should be a team. There shouldn't be a scoreboard. Like when you're giving support to your partner or to the person you're dating, or like doing something for them, right? Then, um, or like let's say you're earning more and you're supporting your partner, or you had to sacrifice a lot more than your partner. If you're doing this, remember you're doing it for the sake of the relationship that you also want, the relationship that is also giving you a lot of benefits. So when you're doing it, you're also doing that for yourself. You're not only doing it for the other person. So always think of you and the people involved as a team, especially if you love each other, um, and you really value this connection, then it's not about competition. It's not about who wins. Because if there's a winner, that means there's a loser. And if there's a loser, that means this loser is feeling overwhelmed. This loser is feeling attacked. This loser is feeling disconnected from the whole relationship. Nobody likes to be the loser, right? So if there's a loser in a relationship, that means this loser is slowly resenting this relationship. Because of course, if you find yourself being a loser so many times or all the time in a relationship, then it means that way you feel um like, oh, in this place, like if like imagine now you are at a job, right? And in this job you always feel like a loser. You will quit at the end, or you will get fired if you stay. Like if you don't have the courage to quit, you will be left. You will be let go. Um, so yeah. So remember, you're always a team. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's no perfect team either, right? So of course, scoreboard sometimes happen and competition sometimes happen, but just keep aware of what's going on. Stay aware of what's going on. Erase the scoreboards as soon as you realize them and work on finding ways to really realize the scoreboards and to be aware of them. Another don't is distrust. So distrust, I know the first thing that jumps to mind is jealousy, right? But it's not always about jealousy. Like you can be the most trusting partner or person when it comes to other people and their interest in your loved one. But sometimes it shows up as like checking tone or over analyzing delays in replies or assuming hidden motives. Again, that's like jumping to conclusions, right? Or expecting disappointment. So again, jumping to conclusions. So um, if something happens and you get like a bad feeling about it, and then you immediately jump to like, oh, this person did this horrible thing to me without really even trying to listen to them, hear them out, understand their perspective, right? So, and of course, like if you're dating, then it's a little bit more difficult because of course, like maybe you don't trust the person right away, and it takes time sometimes to build this trust. Um, but you really need to find this balance between like staying safe, trusting, um, don't overtrust also, but it's always about balance, right? And if you if someone has trust issues, then it will just get worse. Like the closer they get to the person, the worse it gets, like when it comes to trust. So you really need to like awareness. I always talk about awareness in all of my episodes. Maybe I should stop that, but awareness is really like a game changer. But yeah, so trust isn't certainty, it's the willingness to tolerate uncertainty without control. So try to communicate. Communication is key. When there's something going on, even if you jump into to conclusions, you don't have to act on that. So just first hear the other person out, Try to understand their perspective, and then you can share your fears. Like if you have a fear, don't blame. Again, don't go to the blame. Just feel share how you're feeling. Like I feel this way, and my mind is jumping to this idea that it could be this, but I love you and I don't want to jump into conclusions, so I'm here to really understand what's going on. Do you have anything that could help me understand the situation? So it can be open and honest, but see, like you still shared your fears, but without the blame game. And so resentment and anger, these are intertwined. So if you had anger, like unspoken anger, let's call it unspoken anger, over time it builds up and then you resent the other person. And then it continues to like jumping to conclusions, distrust, and so on. So all these dawns are really, many of them are kind of connected. So it depends on how long you've been doing this or how long you've been experiencing this. Um, so when needs are minimized, and delayed or repeatedly unmet, especially after talking about it. So, of course, there are people who have these needs and these like very important needs that they need from the other person. But then they don't speak about it at all, like not even a single time. And then they expect the other person to meet their needs. Then this is kind of a you problem, sorry, for people who are like that. Because, yeah, of course, communication is key. But I'm talking here about if you talked about it, or if your partner talked to you about it, and then you maybe tried a little bit to do something about it, right? To like meet these needs. But then you gave up. You tried for a while, you gave up. And then your partner talks to you about it again, or you talk to your partner about these needs. And then they try, or you try for a while, and then one of you gives up. And it happens again and again. At some point, the person with the needs will stop talking about it and will start just building up these like disappointments. And these disappointments at some point they turn into resentment. So so healthy relationships really address tension early on. So they don't let it fossilize, like talk about it. So if even if you talked about it repeatedly and it didn't happen, have an honest conversation about it. Come to your partner, tell them like, "Hey, I know we talked a lot about it and I'm kind of tired talking about it. But I want us to find a common grounds. I can see that this is something hard for you to meet, but maybe we can find somewhere in the middle. Like I can compromise a bit, you can compromise a bit, and then we meet in the middle. That way, I don't feel disconnected or I don't feel that I have this very important need that needs to be met, that it's unmet now. And at the same time, you don't feel like this pressure of always having to do something that it's not natural to you. So something like that. Um, Communication again. So, and don't think like letting this slip away or that slip away like over and over and over again, that this will get better or like you will get used to it. Trust me, subconsciously, the nervous system, the subconscious mind, it works in ways that the conscious mind can sometimes cannot comprehend. So at the same time, don't jump to the worst conclusion. Like if one time the need was unmet, don't immediately like think like, oh, this person will never meet my needs, and start with a blame game and so on. Give like after you communicate your needs, give your partner or the people involved, give them a bit of space, a bit of time to really show up, to show up um, like at the right time for them in their own pace, um, like voluntarily, like not pressured. So that's a very important point. Um, then, yeah, there's also like the threat. So a lot of partners, when they're fighting, they're like always saying like, "Oh, maybe we should just break up," or "I'm leaving." And then like 10 minutes later, they come back and like saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I said this, I didn't mean it." You know, it creates scars. And at some point, the person who keeps hearing it, they're they're just gonna be fed up with it, you know? It just creates this unsafety. It's always about safety, right? So don't weaponize abandonment. And if you're doing it on autopilot or your partner is doing it on autopilot, like without noticing it, it's worth a conversation. Sit down, tell them like, hey, you always do this, or I realize I'm always doing this. Um, but I really don't mean it, but somehow it just comes out of my mouth when I'm very overwhelmed. So let's try to find a solution. So maybe if you get really overwhelmed, maybe you need a little break. Maybe like to cool down and then to continue the conversation again. Maybe you need like reassurance in the moment to feel like, okay, even if you're fighting, but you're not like, it's not a deal breaker, this fight. It's just a fight. It's a lot of ugliness, but it's just a fight. We're gonna stay together. So if like you manage to both kind of establish this reassurance and then continue the fight, of course, then it can be a solution, but it always starts with a conversation. Um, or sometimes like silent withdrawals. I mean, of course, sometimes people need some space to like go into their minds and really know how they're feeling and then come back and talk about it. This is normal, but I'm talking like there are some people who do it for days, like 2 days, 3 days, silent withdrawals. This is very unhealthy. It's not doing anything right. Maybe temporarily it's manipulating the other person and maybe really solving some problems like that or overcoming some arguments like that, but long term it's like stabbing the relationship in the heart. Disrespect is one of, yeah, it's the same as jokes, right? Like these criticism. So it's disrespect is not only like yelling and name calling and shouting and screaming and no, it can be just really an eye roll, can be just like or something like that, you know, depending on the situation and the topic and everything. So not every eye roll is disrespect. So it can sometimes, like, of course, during an argument, it's hard to really control all of that. Um, but really, like, there are certain boundaries that really need to be kept, like depending on the topic and how you're arguing and so on. Try to remember you are a team. You are a team. And even if you come to the conclusion that you want to separate, right? Like let's say not nobody really did something this terrible to like end the relationship. But if you're keeping having arguments and about like even if it's about silly things or just mismatches or misunderstandings, right? Like and even if you come to the conclusion that this relationship is not working, you should still separate like or part ways with the relationship as a team. So or just recognize that oh this team is not working. It's not good, doesn't have to get ugly. Can just be like, okay, this team is not working. Let's part ways, but with respect. So the respect has to go all the way, you know, like from day one until the last day. Grudges. So grudges is one of the how to call it, like one of the worst weapons that one can use or the one can have or quality can have, one can have. Not just for the other people, but for yourself. Imagine like holding on to these negative emotions subconsciously. It's really overloading the nervous system. So one of the ways to be happy in life in general, whether in relationships, work, everything, is the ability to let go. And I think this is once somewhere I read that letting go is the hardest um, skill humans have to learn. So, and so many humans fail, or so many people fail to learn this skill, the skill of letting go. This is our problem. Like we live in the past, we cannot let go of memories, right? Like this is very difficult. And I'm saying it also from a perspective that I was a person and still am. I cannot let go of certain things. Like grudges, I can let go. That's not a problem for me. But memories, like it sometimes really hurts me. Like I remember my first breakup. It was so hard on me and took me so long to let it go just because I was holding on to the nice memories, like I was not being realistic. I was really over fantasizing the memories. And I think that was part of the problem that I wasn't able to let go fully. Of course, certain circumstances make it more difficult to let go than other circumstances, but let's go back to the topic, holding grudges. So, it's a game scoreboard, but the negative one, right? Like, oh, you did this the other day, you did this the other day, you did this the other day. But now, today, there is this problem, but you unpack all the past and you say, remember 10 years ago, June 16th at 7 p.m., you said this. Don't do that. Like, healthy, successful relationships, they really only work when there's a lot of forgiving, like just talk about it, overcome the issue. You're a team, let it go then. So if you're bringing the past into every single disagreement, the wound has never healed. You're just recutting the scar. Like there's a scar, you're recutting it, and the wound is getting bigger and bigger. So usually holding grudges, it comes from a root cause. It comes from like a background, right? Like it's either like it can be like a defense mechanism, like to remember. So like for example, if you burn yourself on a stove, right? Then you will remember this. You're not gonna let this go. You're gonna remember like, oh, I was burned, I'm not gonna touch this again. But so it can be like a nervous system reaction to pain and to sadness and to like any negative experience, right? So that's part of it. That's why sometimes we hold grudges. But you need to really be aware that this person is not a stove. This person is not fire. You're not gonna get burned every single time. So you really need to differentiate and not let your instinct just like rule you or like put you on autopilot. So you really need to like make a difference between um, people and things, right? Or negative things or negative experiences. So um, and usually, yeah, like it comes with a lot of like trust issues and depending on the past, like if you've been hurt by so many people in the past, people usually tend to then develop this like holding grudges problem. But I think it's always good to be aware of it and then work on it. And holding grudges for a long time, it also creates this victim mentality, right? Because I mean, it's the kind of the chicken or the egg, right? Like what comes first? Victim mentality, people, they hold grudges, but also holding grudges for a long time based on past experiences makes you get this victim mentality. So, um, with a victim mentality, nothing can work out. So I'm going to actually I would like to do another episode about victim mentality. That's a very important um, topic to talk about, especially in our modern lives. So, yeah, and as I said, like criticism, we talked about it. It's just a never-ending story. It's a never-ending battle. See, it's a battle then. Criticism is not good. I mean, of course, sometimes it's important to do it, but try to do it in a constructive way. Try to do it from your own perspective. Try to communicate it in a healthy way. Try to communicate it while reassuring the other person, like, hey, I'm not saying this because I don't like you. I'm not saying this because I I think I'm better. No, I'm saying this because I'm feeling this way and I don't want to continue feeling this way for a long time because it would affect how I feel about the relationship. But I still love you so much. And I know maybe when you are doing this or that, it's not coming out of like hate or disrespect to me, but maybe we can like talk about it to really maybe I misunderstood you, maybe I don't know your point of view and so on. So like always keep benefit of the doubt, right? Like every time you want to talk about or like address a behavior or a quality of the other person, be very gentle, be very respectful, keep respect all the time. You know, you're also not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So if you criticize like one person 10 times, the same person can criticize you back 100 times because we all have flaws. But the way to communicate them, so it's more like a feedback, you know, like feedback builds closeness, and it shouldn't be passive aggressive. It shouldn't be manipulative. It shouldn't be gaslighting. You know, you really have to be careful. And I know some people, like when I say this to some of my clients, they tell me like, oh, but then we have to calculate so much, like how we speak and how we communicate and how we express our feelings and thoughts. At first, it might feel like that actually. Um, but if you know why you're communicating that like that, like the root cause of all of this, and understand that and then work on it, at some point it's kind of like learning a new skill, right? At first it doesn't feel natural, but then at some point it becomes like also an autopilot, but a better autopilot. So of course at first it might not feel comfortable, it might not feel nice, but the end result, you want to preserve this relationship. Or if you're not in a relationship, you want to get to a point, you want to get a healthy relationship, you know? So um it's not easy work. I have to be honest, it's not easy work, but it's very fruitful and it's very rewarding at the end. Secrets, secrets, secrets. It's basically every time you keep a secret that is involving your other person or people you're dating or even friendships, everything, you know, like friendships, if it involves people that you love, every time you keep one secret, it's like a small breakup, but happening in the future, not now. I don't know if that makes sense. But basically, secrets force intimacy to operate on incomplete information. So it's kind of like lying to your person, lying to the people they're involved in. So whether it's about money or communication with an ex or resentment or emotional withdrawal or anything, right? Of course. So create secrets create asymmetry in any relationship, whether platonic or romantic. So, of course, like some people like to keep some things to themselves, but like for example, I cannot really think right now of like one thing that is okay to keep for yourself, but like let's say you um like the color gray, you know? And there was no chance opportunity to talk about that yet. That's a secret you can keep. But you don't have to lie. Of course, if it comes up, it comes up. But like, you know, that then it's not a secret really. Like it's just something just that just didn't come up. So again, but just to be understood, like healthy relationships don't require total transparency, but they do require integrity. So total transparency is good, but of course, some certain things maybe is good to keep it for yourself. But as long as it doesn't harm integrity, it doesn't harm the other person, it doesn't offer incomplete information to the other person, right? So here we really need to identify what things are can be considered a harmful secret. So, um, yeah. So of course. That's really important to keep transparency, to keep communication honest and open, with respect and with all the above that we talked about. So there's so many other things I would like to talk about, but I don't want to make this episode super long. There's something about demand, like how to demand from the other person, how something about ridicule and something about abuse, whether it's emotional, verbal, psychological, physical, any kind of abuse is never justified. But I would probably do separate episodes on those topics. Um, I think that I talked a lot about it. Like I talked a lot today, sorry. So yeah. And healthy, like just one final thought, because I know I talked a lot about the dawns now, but many people misunderstand that like, oh, this is how to create, as I said at the beginning of the episode, that this is to create a very perfect relationship. No, healthy relationships, they're not perfect either. There is a lot of flaws in any relationship, whether healthy or unhealthy, even, but it's really about emotional safety. It's about how much of a team have you established yourselves, like with the other person? So are you a team or not? Teams are not perfect. Teams have conflicts. Teams have disagreements, arguments. Teams disagree, like they can even um like separate for a while. But as long as you try as much as possible to stay one team with utmost respect and emotional safety, then you are a real winner in love and in relationships, any kind of relationships. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope I managed to bring some value. And if you would like to discuss more and explore more and talk about some certain like behaviors that you do or your partner does, or you find yourself in a dating pattern that you always end up with the people who do like similar stuff to you, for example, or say similar stuff to you, then and you would like to know to have more insights whether this is something concerning or not, then please book a clarity call with me, and I would be happy to listen and give some feedback, and then we see how to move forward from there. But remember, just one thing I always tell all of my clients, everyone around me, talk to your first of all, you need to really reestablish the relationship with yourself. If you have a happy relationship with yourself, then all of the above comes naturally. Like everything comes easily. Maybe not naturally, but everything comes easily. And awareness of negative dawns also comes easily. So first establish the relationship with yourself. And don't always imagine yourself as a best friend. If there's something that you cannot tell your best friend, don't tell it to yourself. And that's how you start. Be gentle, be kind with yourself. Because if you go on and tell yourself like you're stupid, you're ugly, you're at yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself, "Oh, you're stupid," then trust me, you will tell that to so many people around you, and you will hurt not only yourself, but also other people. So you always project outwards, not inwards. So start with yourself and go outwards. If as I said, a free clarity call, you're always welcome. And if you have a story to share with me or any topic that you would like to talk about that can inf affect your love, dating, relationship life, please contact me and I would be happy to have you as a guest. It doesn't have to be a crazy story. It doesn't have to be super insightful, like just only like if you want to share something, and maybe I'm sure there will be many people who get insights, who get benefit out of sharing stories, because that's how we learn. We grow, we learn and we grow together. We learn from each other, from each other's experiences, and how that's how we can make it work. And especially our community, we have to stick together. We have to learn from each other, and we have to grow together. So until next time, please stay kind, be kind to yourself and to others, and be respectful to yourself and others. And most importantly, stay queer. And until next time, thank you very much and have a nice week.